Welcome to the Brooklyn Podcast with yours truly, Anthony Puccio, my co-host Colin Helwig. Colin, it's August. This is usually vacation time for the NBA, but for the Brooklyn Nets, there are still things going on and still things worth talking about that are on the court. First being with Cam Thomas, still remains unsigned. The Nets made a trade with Miami last week, and Curious Michael Porter Jr., Brooklyn's newest member of the team, is talking a whole lot. But before we get into things, we're back. It's good to be back. Right now, we're in a stage where we're moving on from playback and doing our own thing here on StreamYard, YouTube, Apple, and Spotify. So we appreciate you guys for sticking with us, and we're excited for the next season. So if we're calling this season 2 of the Brooklyn Podcast, welcome. If you're somebody that watched before, welcome back. So first things first, Sean Marks remains active, and a lot of reports are saying that the Nets are still looking at trades here and there. But first and foremost, we'll start with the one with Miami that they just pulled off. Haywood Highsmith is the man that they acquired. They also got a second-round pick. I believe it's in 2032.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong. And then the Nets sent one over there, a second-round pick that's protected from 31 to 55. So seems like a lot of just salary cap ideas. This is a expiring contract. Nothing groundbreaking, but a new name in Brooklyn nonetheless. How do you grade the trade? Any extra thoughts that you have on this?
Yeah, I was really hoping the Nets could sneak out of this offseason. They got so close. And it's not as bad as it was last year, but that they could sneak out without adding too many veterans that are going to eat up minutes that I want to all go to the rookie. The rookies are all the young guys. And I'm not saying that like Haywood Highsmith is going to reel in like 35 minutes a night and Drake Powell's going to be stuck in Long Island all the way until March, but he's going to eat up a little bit of those minutes. The Nets have shown that they're a team. Jordy Fernandez wants to win. That means Haywood Highsmith is going to play. Probably won't start, but probably be like a 6-man off the bench kind of guy. So he's a good player. And, you got more draft capital. That's always a goal that's at the top of the Nets agenda right now. But I got to give it like a C plus B minus just because I was really hoping, again, we could just get to the end of the summer. It would be like, all right, these young guys, let's play them a fuck ton. Let's develop them. Let's let them just go for it. You're going to shoot for the sun or reach for the stars and crash and get up and reach 7 other times and just keep going. And like, if you lose a bunch of games, who cares? You got your first round draft pick. So it was a very Brooklyn Nets and Miami Heat kind of trade too, where it was two teams clearly not trying to do a whole lot, but if they could help themselves just a little bit in the margins, then they were going to go for it. So it kind of took me by surprise, but when I really thought about it, it didn't shock me too much considering the nature how those front offices run.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. It's a very bland trade. It's one of those that the capologists and the people that are able to round out all the draft picks and assets get excited for. But for your average fan or even your diehard fan, I don't really know if it does anything or if it means anything. This is somebody that just underwent surgery on August 8th. It's August 19th right now. Training camp is in a month. This is somebody who, again, he's got a knee injury. I don't really know what he's going to be for this team. Like, it reminds me a little bit of Bojan Bogdanovic last year, where they just kind of took him on in that Mikal Bridges trade, and he was hurt. We didn't really hear much about him, and then he was eventually waived and bought out. So I don't know if this is a similar situation, but I'm going to just assume that, basing off of what you said especially, that we hope to see the young guys play. With all respect to this man that got traded to Brooklyn, I just don't see where he fits when he returns, other than potentially being someone that plays a couple of games, maybe gets flipped for the fact that he's an expiring contract. But otherwise, it's just another body in Brooklyn and or Long Island. We have 19 players on the roster right now, Colin. Do you think that he gets a spot over any of these guys?
I think he will. I think the Nets are going to try to do what they did with their veterans last year, was build their value up and then flip them for something at the deadline. And that something might only be like a second round pick, but the Nets have shown that like they're cool, playing Schroeder's a bad example because the Nets didn't have a lot of point guard options outside of him last year, but they're going to play Cam Johnson's another bad example because they ended up not trading him. They're going to play Dorian Finney-Smith and start him a ton to build his trade value up and then ship him out of here for something, even if it means, Noah Clowney, probably in the best interest of the organization for you to log a ton of minutes right now, but this is how we're going to operate. And maybe that's because Jordy's the guy who's like, hey, like, I want to play these veterans and this is how I want to do it. And the front office is kind of like, it's like push and pull between, all right, like the tanking mindset and the go win mindset. Maybe that's kind of where it falls into place. But I don't think they would have done this trade just for no reason. You know what I mean? Like, I think he's going to play, and I think they're going to try to flip him in. It's another important contract too, another value contract in terms of the Nets because it's money off the books next year.
Yeah,
they're kicking the can again with their cap space as far in front as they can to the point where it's going to be useful.
Yeah, which they've doubled and tripled down on, and I don't think it comes as any surprise. I do wonder now. Here we are at the end of August, and we're getting ready for the season, at least preseason and training camp, and a lot of the stuff that we discussed coming into the summer is like Brooklyn controls the offseason, right? The NBA offseason because they're the only team with cap, and maybe it's premature, but I'm not thrilled with anything. I'm not upset, but I'm also not thrilled. It just kind of feels like it was a very like a stalemate. Like this was just a very anticlimactic summer. Like I don't really know if Michael Porter Jr. is the guy that I want flipped for Cam Johnson. Like salary cap or not, we'll get into that in a little bit, but like there's nothing from this offseason that is really making me say like the Nets controlled this offseason. The Nets did this that is getting me really excited. So these like marginal trades that really don't mean anything on the court, they don't get me excited. Maybe I'll next year when they have a lot of money and there are better free agents out there and it's beneficial to them, then we'll come back to this. But in the meantime, it just feels like I said, a little bit bland.
Yeah, I think you're not alone in that feeling, though. I think there are a lot of fans of teams where it just really wasn't the exciting offseason. The exciting off seasons that we grew up with are gone ever since the NBA made it a thing where, all right, players can make more money if they stay with a team and sign an extension versus as outright as a free agent. And then when players figured out, I can sign that extension and I can still leave if I want because players have all the trade power in the league today. Unless you're Kevin Durant in 2022, if you ask for a trade, you will be traded. And Kevin Durant got his wish actually, however many months later. But that's the thing, So then when teams do that, all the money is then locked up. The players locked up, they're locked up against the books, and it really doesn't come down to trades until a team is ready to do a salary dump or that player says, all right, I want out of here and, throws a fit, whatever. So I think like sometimes we hear these things from like Shams or whoever that say Brooklyn controls the offseason, and we hear the offseason and we think of the offseason of 2015 to 2019, but no, they control the off seasons of 2025, which are very mundane. I mean, the biggest move was Kevin Durant getting traded, and the Nets, I believe, did have their hands in on that. They helped facilitate it. But the cap has made it so difficult now, and these teams have gotten so calculative that it's like sliding in like puzzle pieces with all these steals, and that's why so many of them get attached with each other because it's so complicated now, and there's none of these like big smash moves where we just don't care about the parameters of the cap anymore, and it just kind of stalls everything.
Right. And I think when you say like they're looking for that diamond in the rough, now they've got 19 guys on this roster. 4 are going to have to be cut or demoted to Long Island or whatever it might be. But I know that in the past, the Nets, I think, set the record for the most call-ups and call-down, like most players to play in a season for an NBA team. And I'm curious if this is just part of their strategy in trying to find that guy, like just bringing guys up, putting them down. I remember, a lot during the Kenny days and Long Island really forming into its own. I had written an article and I felt like it was the varsity team on one side of the court and the JV team on the other. And sometimes those JV guys would get called up to practice with the varsity guys. And that's what it feels like right now, that almost Brooklyn and Long Island is almost interchangeable for more than 50% of this team, right? Like you look at this roster, and you could tell me, Colin, when I'm done with this, what four guys are getting cut, because it's not necessarily distinct as to who's going to be in Long Island, who's going to be in Brooklyn, but the Nets have said that there will be some of these rookies playing in the G League, but I tend to think that it'll switch. So looking at a team right now with Yegor Demon, you have Nolan Traore, Danny Wolf, Ben Saraf, Drake Powell, Nicholas Claxton, Haywood Highsmith, Noah Clowney, Michael Porter Jr., Dariq Whitehead, Keon Johnson, Tyrese Martin, Jalen Wilson, Drew Timme, Terrence Mann, Tayron Sharp, Zaire Williams, Ricky Council, and assuming Cameron Thomas. I
Who's that?
combined him and Cam Johnson. Who's getting cut from there's nobody, in my opinion, that is safe besides the veterans and Yegor.
Yeah, I mean, Jay Will, Tyrese, Keon, Drew Timme. I think Ricky Council, it's been Nets Daily has reported that it's only going to be partially guaranteed. So all those contracts are non-guaranteed. So they would be the easiest to waive, I believe, is how it works. So those are the targets there. And I think especially Keon Johnson and Tyrese Martin had great years, but this is what happened. This is the byproduct when you draft 5 rookies. This has never been done before. You're not gonna like these, and they're signed to rookie contracts. They're on the team. You know what I mean? Like you spend 5. You add 5 guys to your team. That's a third of a standard NBA roster. So difficult decisions are going to need to be made.
Yeah, I don't know if I have an answer. I just, like I said, I think it's going to be a lot of up and down. And I think they're going to set the record again for the most players called up, brought back down, called up. The year that Chris McCullough was on the Nets was like one of the craziest things. I mean, that guy would be going back and forth and back and forth. And I really think Sean Marks, I think he utilizes Long Island very well. If there's something like people don't give him credit for, it's that like he was really in when the Long Island Nets were built, and he was able to kind of spread his roots out there and use it as a great place to develop these guys. But I guess it can't hurt. But a trade like this is just, I think the biggest question you ask is who's going to be here, or who's going to be suiting up in a Brooklyn Nets uniform on game 1 and then game 82, right? Like who's actually going to carve out a name for themselves outside of the guys that already have. So I rest my case there. If you have anything else you want to say there.
No, I'm going to say trying to figure that out is like trying to pick one of the $1 million case out of like Deal or No Deal. Like we have no idea. You said it yourself. They set the record for up and down out of Long Island last year. So I have no idea. And I'm not even going to try to tell you who.
Yeah. Well, the other thing to dissect is also the schedule, because like I said earlier, is like the team is not very exciting right now. And respectfully, I say that, but the schedule gets dropped. I didn't really have much to say. I noticed, and Lucas Kaplan had pointed this out on X, the Nets are playing 17 games in March. But regarding reunions, this, that, the other thing, there really isn't much. If Ben Simmons gets signed by a team, it might be fun to see him back at Barclays Center, but otherwise, like I don't have anything. Like I will say, for the organization though, and for the NBA itself, the 2 China games that they're playing, October 10th and the 12th, are probably 2 of the biggest games for the organization, especially as they're targeting that global audience, and having an owner like Joe Tsai, who has obviously direct roots to China. I think that Tsai is playing a huge part in reconnecting and rebuilding this relationship between NBA and China. So for me, I'm looking at more of it like from a business standpoint, and like getting these guys visibility, money, targeting new fans, and building the game. Like I said, rebuilding that relationship that the 2 once had. Brooklyn preseason game and the 2 games in China, I actually think for the organization itself are the biggest games. Otherwise, Colin, I really I don't I don't know. You know, the Knicks, just because they're the Knicks. Like, you know, what do you got for me?
No, I hear what you're saying about welcome back parties. I feel like as a Nets fan, you must be absolutely like sick of welcome back parties. You know, you threw two. It was a big deal when Katie and Kyrie were coming back. I mean, you thought those guys were going to carry your franchise for probably 5 or 6 more years longer than they did. And then Mikal Bridges was already a step down from that. And I think Cam Johnson was a better player than Mikal Bridges last year. But now, like a Cam Johnson farewell, it's like you just keep going down and down like the notches. And they've just also just sent so many players away from their team over the past year. They've sold them off for picks and everything. It's like, my goodness. Like I think it's cool that the Nets at the very least do like a welcome back. Even the guys that had like soured on the way out. Like I think they did do like a welcome James Harden back thing. I know people don't like that, but I think it's a really easy thing you can do that will make your team be in the good lights of the players association and players out there that like, hey, at the end of the day, they'll always extend the olive branch, even if it is a super tiny one, and even if it is something really little like that. Just an easy thing you can do. But yeah, I'm sure it'll be nice to see Cam Johnson back in the building. Like he was a great Brooklyn Net, just at a really bad time to be a great Brooklyn Net, and that's unfortunate, but it's not his fault. But I also very much understand the Nets fans that are not going to be, oh, we got to welcome back Cam Johnson. Like it's hard to celebrate a dark time in your franchise, and he was at the center of that. You know what I mean?
Right.
Again, not his
Right.
fault, but that's just how it is. You know?
No. And what he played in Brooklyn for a season and a half, 2 seasons, 2 half seasons, right?
Yeah,
So it's not like there's much history, and like you said, there's not much good history to celebrate.
yeah,
Um, you know, a lot of people like to watch nationally televised games and like seeing how many and counting. The Nets have 2 this year. It's 2 more than I thought they would get. Like truth told,
I
and it
think
might be.
everyone gets one, right? Or there's some with zero. There might have been some with
I
zero last year.
I think you get one, and I would think with all these new streaming services that the NBA is partnered up with, you know, I would imagine everybody gets at least one
Yeah,
in the
I mean,
NBA Cup,
one of them's on
nonetheless.
Peacock.
Yeah, are they both? I know it's Minnesota and Chicago. Are those both Cup games?
Are they both what?
NBA Cup games.
That's a good question. It's right around that, or Minnesota is right around that time. Minnesota is early November. Chicago is January 16th. So that'll be well after. That's a weird one. I mean, the Bulls are also
Strange.
a not good team. A little better than that's but
Yeah. Well, they have 14 back to back, 17 games in March in general. They're not going on the West Coast for the first like 3 months of the season. I think a big part of that is because they are playing in China, and that adjustment to start. They go to China October 10th and 12th for those 2 games, and then they start October 22nd is the first game of the year. 24th is the first home game. So they have about 10 days in between to really get back on schedule and adjust to the time zone. And you talk to any players that start preseason or the season overseas, and they will tell you every single time it's a killer when they get back. So I don't know how they're going to come out. You know, last year they kind of came out hot, and first 5, 10, 15 games of the year were pretty fun because they're exceeding our expectations. But I don't know if this team is. I don't know what to expect. They play Charlotte to start the season, and I think we'll get a good idea of who they are and who they're competing against in the Tank Fest right from the start.
yeah. Yeah, that tank conversation is going to be in front of us right away. Right away. People are going to be talking about it, win or lose.
Yeah. So if you're a Brooklyn Nets fan, and I'm talking to you right now, and I'm saying, Colin, what are you looking? Who are you looking forward to watching? Or what are you selling fans this year? You're a season ticket holder, right? You gotta sell tickets. You gotta get people in the building. Cam Thomas is unsigned right now, and he'd kind of be that maybe that one guy that you would maybe go out of your way to watch on this team. Sell me.
I didn't think we were going to talk about this just yet because it hasn't been confirmed yet, but I think it's the jerseys, and I think it's the Coogee court coming back.
Oh, I hope
That
so.
is
I hope so.
Well, because I had a conversation with a buddy of mine, and I was like, why are they doing this year? Like, the team's not going to be good. Wouldn't you want to bring this back, this beloved jerseys and court stuff and design, or year when they're actually going to be good? And he was like, they're probably going to struggle to sell jerseys this year to
Yeah,
begin with. They're probably going to struggle to sell tickets and T-shirts and all that stuff. If they can come out with some merch that is a bona fide home run hitter, people are going to maybe buy it anyway just because of the design. Now's the time to do it because they can kind of
absolutely.
cut back into the money that I don't know if you're going to lose, but it'll help you make money when you otherwise wouldn't because the talent on the court isn't there to help build it up.
Right.
I also hated the jerseys last year. I thought they were some of the
Awful.
worst jerseys I have ever seen. And I actually like Cause as an artist. I just thought the last two, I mean, it was really the same jersey, but oh my
Yeah.
God. When I end,
They
when
missed the mark.
when I enter the gates of hell, it's gonna be like two like demons in those jerseys opening up. Oh my god,
Yeah.
just staring at it every game. It was like, dude, this is like they look like prison uniforms. Like they're just like black and white.
They were brutal. They were brutal with like a mix of I don't know. I called them kind of like Gogurt. You remember Gogurt back in the day? Like he
Yeah,
looked like
yeah,
just like someone poured like Gogurt all over like a black and gray jersey. And
yeah.
again, it's no disrespect to Cause because I like the artist. I like what he does, but I just thought those jerseys you said, I think they were actually two of the most putrid jerseys in like NBA history. It was
I
like insult to injury with how bad they were, and then having an eyesore on top of the eyesore.
mhm.
I
Yeah.
hope
Well, I
you're
was
right, Colin, about Coogee. Go ahead. Go
yeah.
ahead.
No, I was gonna say that was the only thing, and that's that it against the point I'm making now. But my original point with my buddy when I was talking about this was that all right, like 2 seasons I'm not going to want to remember anyway. If we're going to have cruddy jerseys, let's throw them on there. But
Yeah.
now I guess they're trying to it's like when you're trying to like take like a pill and like you have like a spoonful of sugar. It's like, all right, this pill is going to be a tough season to watch, but the nice jerseys are going to be that spoonful of sugar.
Ah, the analogies are coming in. Colin's got a sweet tooth, baby. It's
It's been a
August,
long
folks.
day.
It's interesting the speculation, and I hope you're right because I mean, look at us. You know, whether the Brooklyn Nets will give us credit or not, our logo is Coogee or Brooklyn Camo or whatever you want to call it on the Brooklyn podcast right here. So maybe we inspired a little bit of hope, but a lot of the fans have been clamoring for this. I mean, we've all been waiting, and in fact, I think it's to the extent where they can make them their automatic home jerseys. Like if you do it right, you don't write Bed-Stuy on the front, you write Brooklyn on the front, the way that it was that first year. You could make that a home or away jersey permanently, and I think people will love that. I also love that you could wear any color under a Coogee jersey, a
Yeah.
black or white Coogee jersey. You could wear purple underneath it. This is what we're looking forward to.
Yeah.
And I guess you got to make the most of it. I am hoping that Cam Thomas is back, and like I hope that he's motivated to where we get to watch somebody that maybe I'll speak a little optimism into this podcast, but like if Cam Thomas is who he thinks that he is, and he comes out and he's pissed off and he's on a prove it contract, which is what it's starting to look like. I'm curious to see, and I'm not saying they're a playoff team, but if Cam is dropping 30 a night and you got a couple veterans around him like Terrence Mann, Michael Porter Jr., you got some of these emerging rookies that are playing in a good system under Jordy. You still have Nick Claxton. If Yago or any of these guys can hit and Cam is going off and they're overachieving by any standard, that would be such a great storyline. And I know it's cautious optimism, false hope, whatever you want to call it, but that's the one thing I got for fans. If I was to say like, yo, this guy is coming out this year and he's going to prove himself to be a superstar. And he feels that way. So if he's actually being put to the test and his money is on the line, whether it be next year or the year after, whatever it is, and like I said, he thinks who he is and what he's worth, and he's coming out dropping 40 at Barclays because why not? That could be a lot of fun, Colin. Like there could be a lot of people showing up to Nets games if they're 500 or they're 1 or 2 underneath, and Cam's out dropping 30 a game. But that's really all I got. I'm curious to see how it would play out, though. I think they would completely overachieve if he proves himself to be a fringe all-star.
Yeah, I mean, it's what had us hyped going into last year, and we didn't get to see it because of the injuries. So, try it again. That excitement's still going to be there. I do think it's easy to look at the Nets and just assume they're going to be like ass because, and we've done it too, because you just kind of forget that Cam Thomas was hurt because he was there and then he came back for a couple games, and that in your head they were always supposed to stink, and the story is that they were supposed to stink and they stunk, and that's that. And Cam Johnson was their health related or not, their best player last year, and he's gone. So off the cuff, when you just look at those things and you look at everything from the surface, you just think, all right, so they're going to be even worse next year. They're going to stink again. The fact of the matter is Cam Thomas at his best would be a floor racer for this team. So I think there is a better chance of them, surprising some people than the common basketball player or the common basketball fan has in their head right now. However, I do think that the East is going to be tougher than it was last year, specifically for teams like the Nets. Because I think that the top of the East got weaker. The Celtics, not going to be as good. Pacers, not going to be as good. However, those teams were so good last year that the steps they took back, injury-related or not, they're still going to be better than the Nets. And then if you look at those middle-pack teams like the Sixers, I assume it's hard for them to be more hurt than they were last year. But they also just added VJ Edgecombe. They're going to be better. The Magic got better. I think the Hawks are going to be a really good team next year.
Atlanta got a lot better,
Seems like the Knicks and the Cavs, they stayed the same, but the same was much better than the Nets. I even think like the Raptors, I think, are a team with Brandon Ingram. They got a shot. They on paper probably should be better than the Nets. Pistons, assuming that it wasn't a one-hit wonder last year, they'll be better. So I think like right in that area where like the teams where maybe the Nets could have like that they were. It's a reach to say they were clawing at them last year, but the teams that they might have been clawing at got better. And then the teams that got worse were the teams that were 3 or 4 arms distances away from them. So I think it's going to be harder for them to leap up if that's even what they want to do.
Yeah. That's the biggest question here is do they want that? Right. I had tweeted that out about Cam's situation when there was some news around it. I just said, what if in this hypothetical scenario he really comes out and balls out and these guys overachieve? Like, is that what they want, especially if he's not part of their long-term plan? So, Cam could ruin the tank or at least hurt it. But then again, who am I to say? Because the way things turned out last year with the lottery odds just showed, again, it's a lottery at the end of the day. So we don't get to pick and choose. But we could be hopeful, though. That's the point. That's why we're here. Let's hope that we get to watch at least some fun hoops or a fun player or a young rookie that emerges and makes a name for himself. Now, somebody who definitely has made a name for himself is Michael Porter Jr. The thing about Michael Porter Jr. is that he was in Denver. Now he's in Brooklyn. Colin, I don't know if you want to comment on this. I'll gladly take the floor if you want.
Yeah, I mean, I know he's been doing a bunch of like streaming and stuff like that on YouTube. I know I'm a little younger than you, Pooch, but I'm going to sound like the old man here. I really haven't watched a lot of it just because that content has never really quite like spoken to me. But I do know he has been talking a bunch. And like I saw the clip of him walking or like just pulling racks out of his back pocket, and I was like, huh. But, yeah, I don't know what you saw.
Look, like he's allowed to live his own life and be curious Mike and do whatever he wants. And I'm not going to judge the man for what happened with the homeless guy in the city or whatever it is that he's talking about, that is vice or women or this or that or the other thing. But it's hard for me to scroll past a video of him saying that when he takes women out, he shows them Andrew Tate videos. Like, there are very few people that like are worse than this guy. And like, we're allowed to say that. Like, this is completely unacceptable. And I know it's not on behalf of the Nets, but he's now the star of the Brooklyn Nets. He's now one of the faces of your organization. You put out the schedule, his face is the biggest and the first one you see. The Brooklyn Nets are two things. One, they preach high character players that don't say shit like this and don't feel these ways, or at least don't publicly express that. And the last time that there was somebody that felt this way, and I'm not saying misogyny or anything like that, but he had his own thoughts and opinions on certain controversial topics, he was booted right out of town by the owner. And he was a superstar and probably 10 times the player that MPJ was. But the Brooklyn Nets are also owned by a woman, and Clara Wu Tsai. Out in front of Barclays Center is "You Belong Here." This is a team that, an arena that is home to the New York Liberty. So when I'm watching this guy and he's saying that he shows Andrew Tate videos to women when he sees them, I'm thinking to myself, like, Sean Marks wanted this guy part of his culture. Like, I know Jordy coached him or whatever. He was in Denver around the same time as him, but like, this is the guy that's going to be the veteran in a locker room filled with 19, 20, 21-year-olds. I don't really know. Like, I'm not here to diss Sean Marks, but there's a whole lot wrong with what's going on. And I think he's said these things in the past or has hinted at certain things in Denver, but now he's in New York City and it's going to be spoken about. I don't know him personally, but when you make comments like that, like, I'm sorry, man. Like, you don't have respect for women. You simply have no regard for anybody else but yourself. Like, you sound like he sounded crazy when I was hearing that. And if I was a woman, I would take the phone and bash it over his head. But it made me immediately think about the women that are in Brooklyn and the strong women at that, and how much they push the New York Liberty and empower women in Brooklyn. And then you got this guy, Michael Porter Jr., the newest Brooklyn Net, saying these absolutely wild comments. Now, again, people could say, Pooch, you're being hard on the guy. It's his personal life, this, that, the other thing. Like, let's get something straight here. Andrew Tate is not a good person. I mean, he is a wanted man for what he does to women. And he's openly saying that he promotes this type of behavior. So I'm not here to cause problems. I'm not here to cause a commotion or anything like that. But it just feels so contradictory to not only what Sean Marks preaches, but also what Joe Tsai, the Brooklyn Nets, and the Brooklyn community is all about. So I would advise Curious Mike to stop being so freaking curious and put the mic down ASAP, because it ain't gonna work, buddy. Like, this isn't Denver anymore. This is New York City, and you're gonna get called out on that, even if it's a bad Brooklyn Nets team. I can't imagine that Sean Marks and Joe Tsai or anybody in that organization is too thrilled with this guy right now. They're really, really lucky that we're calling them irrelevant right now, because if he was on the Knicks or he was on any bigger team, this is all you would see plastered all over SportsCenter right now. But Colin, I think it's a disgrace, and I actually do think it's a problem. I thought the other stuff, his vlogs and things like that, whatever, but the dude literally said, I want to have Sabrina Ionescu or Breanna Stewart on my podcast, and then proceeded to say these things about how he treats women. This guy is out of his mind. And now he's the veteran leader in Brooklyn's locker room. He's the second oldest player after Terrence Mann. So we gave up Cam Johnson, this high character individual who was a great face of the organization during the rebuild, for this guy who's basically telling you, I don't respect women, or I'm going to shove Andrew Tate in their face to see what kind of reaction I get. That's not the guy that you want being a veteran leader in your locker room amid a culture rebuild, Colin. I'm sorry. That is not the type of dude you want. I think a lot of people were baffled when they first got him, because there was a couple of things that have happened in the past that seem to completely contradict what Sean Marks and Joe Tsai are about in Brooklyn. And like I said, we saw a little bit of it with Kyrie in his own respect. And now we're rebuilding this culture. Everything is fine. We draft 5 first-round picks. Got all these young PR players. And Michael Porter Jr. is going on podcasts saying that he basically has no respect for females and things of that nature. I mean, it's so cruel and so like disgusting to me that like I have no other choice to laugh. But um, this is what it is, and I'm not here to analyze everything this guy does. But Colin, that was a bad clip, and on Nets Daily we wrote the headline was the Brooklyn Nets have a problem, and his name is Michael Porter Jr. That PR staff is going to have their hands full if he's vlogging every day, and that Sean Marks does not like any bit of it.
Take a bow, my friend.
I take a bow. I mean, again,
I don't know if you can. It's taking a bow in a chair is weird, but no, very, very well said.
Look again, Colin. Like I've always told you, I feel like I've always had an open mind to a lot of these players and trying to understand the human side, the perspective, everything like that. But when I'm hearing like him talk about women being his vice, and like what he's telling me is like all I'm hearing is like, dude, you're a womanizer. When I hear about the Andrew Tate comments, I'm hearing I'm misogynist. Like I'm hearing all these bad things. But then he flips on the other side and says he wants Liberty games are lit. I want their players on my podcast. Like, bro, like read the fucking room. Like, what is wrong with you? Why would you say these things? And even if you feel that way, why you're a public figure. It would be wrong if you or I were to say that, because how could anybody look up to this man? But nonetheless, a role model now and veteran leader in Brooklyn's locker room. You're supposed to practice what you preach, but when you bring in someone like that in exchange for Cam Johnson, again, who is a stand-up character and a damn good basketball player, it makes you scratch your head a little bit. This is not the guy that the Brooklyn Nets should be building with. And look, I think apparently there was a source that feels that he could be a top scorer in the NBA. That might or might not be true, but he certainly ain't going to lead them to 40 wins. It's not going to be because of him. And I think we're probably misclassifying him into something that he's not. And he's not a top scorer in the NBA. He just might be a good player on a bad team saying a lot of stupid shit.
Yeah. Yeah. At best, it's just an absurd lack of awareness. And New York City, everywhere in this age, it's not the town for that. So
No, man. No. And like I said, like New York City, New York, a lot of people have a lot of different perspectives, and people for the most part have a lot of different ideas and don't get so sensitive. But like this type of stuff is unacceptable. So we don't have to talk too much about it, but I did want to get that out there. Like you're seeing clip after clip after clip after clip, and you can make whatever you want of it. You could scroll past it, but I look at it from a Brooklyn Nets perspective. I look at it as if I'm in Shaw Mark's shoes, if I'm in Joe Tsai's shoes, I'm saying, oh my God, what is going on? And we need to get this guy into HSS ASAP with our PR team, because this is a disaster.
yeah.
On that note, though, go Liberty.
Yes. Playoffs coming.
So on a lighter topic, and then we're going to start jumping into the mailbag, Colin. You wanted to note about Nolan Traore that he switched his number from 19, which is where he was selected in this past draft, to number 88, which has never been used by a Brooklyn Net. Really, really interesting. What do you make of it? Do you like it? Do you not?
Obviously, this isn't the most important topic. Not many. There aren't a whole lot of basketball-oriented topics around this time of year, but I'll say this: I love it. I think it's very lame when you come into the league and you're immediately 23 or 24. Like, if you have any sense of ambition, like find a number that no one has used so that you can go on and have this great career. And then 50 years from now, people are like, all right, I look at that number and I think of Nolan. Like,
Right.
the number 77, Luka's been a great player and been to a finals and all that stuff, but that is Luka Doncic's number.
Yeah.
Probably for until like someone better than him comes on and like plays longer and better, right? Because he took that number that no one else used and he made it his own. Like, you're not going to go out there, wear 23 and be better than Michael Jordan and LeBron James, or 24 and be better than Kobe and all that stuff.
Right.
So, and there's plenty of numbers out there. Maybe they don't have as much aura as the other numbers, but 88 is pretty fire. I say that's a very high aura number in football for sure. I think of
Yeah.
Hakeem Nicks as a Giants fan, but
Right.
there are a couple Cowboy wide receivers who rock that too. So I think it's a cool move to do. I wish more guys did that. That said, Danny Wolf for some reason just strikes me as number 2. Number 2 has always felt like it's a power forward number, maybe just because of Cam Johnson and Blake Griffin before that.
Yeah.
But that said, like Danny Wolf going to 2, but love Nolan going to 88.
Yeah. 88 is a cool number. I like the number 8 because of the infinity signs, and you call me a basic whatever, but I do like that. I had somebody, a good friend of mine, is net season ticket holder, and he was avid listener of the Brooklyn Way podcast. His name is Doug Reuter, and he has the most attention to detail eye on him, and he has pointed out to me several times about how he believes that the Nets number 8s are flipped the wrong way. And I couldn't help but think of him when Nolan changed his number, because I said, oh man, that's going to drive Doug nuts. So Doug, if you're listening, shout out to you. I hope that they have him the right way. But Colin, I like that nobody's ever done it before. He's creating his own legacy. The basic numbers are out. The 23s and stuff like that. Like, I don't know. I think we put it to rest after Braun. But how did you get your number? What is your number, and how did you get it?
I was 11 for a long time just because 2 L's in Colin. It just kind of made sense to me. And I know football was kind of my first love. And so I was a big Giants fan, and they had retired Phil Sims's number. So like, I never wanted to, like, if I was going to like draw myself like in like first grade, like in a Giants jersey, I was like, even though I knew like the number was retired, but I was like, all right, like I can't just take Eli's number. I can't take Plaxico's number. Like, what's a number no one on the team has? 11. So I was 11 for a long time. But I did baseball. I was 19 because of Tanaka in high school.
Wow.
Even though I didn't pitch, he was just like, when I had years of the Yankees just being old guys and like old, he was like, when he came over from Japan, he was sick. And he's probably my favorite Yankee pitcher of all time, even though limited success, playoff success compared to guys like CeCe and Andy Pettit. But yeah, 19 and 11. What about you?
That's nice. I like the Colin. I want to like make a logo out of it now.
Yeah.
Colin with the
2
L.
Make a logo out of it.
I will. I'll send you a screenshot after.
Hell yeah.
I've always been number 3 since I was like as young as I could remember anything at all. My dad loved like astrology and birthdays and things like that, and I'm born on February 6th, 1995, and Babe Ruth is born February 6th, 1895. So we're actually 100 years exactly apart from each other. So my dad was always number 5. My brother was always number 5. I think Jason Kidd had a lot to do with that. But for me, I was always number 3 because Babe Ruth. And like, it was from when I was at like a tiny, tiny kid to this very day. I'll always be number 3, Colin. And I'll never forget that Babe Ruth is 100 years older than me. It's always like interesting asking people like, how did you get your number? And there's always a story behind it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, like I'm sure Nolan has a better reason to be 88 besides like, and maybe he doesn't, but I imagine there's something more in there than like, oh, I want like a number with aura that doesn't have an identity yet. But no, you're right. It is. You always get a cool story out of it.
You never know, and a lot of people find spiritual meaning behind certain numbers or their own sentimental meaning. So there are some like random questions like this that you could ask at media day and maybe hear. But I like that you pointed that out as a segment on the podcast, because you get to talk about your own, and also just like the fact that nobody's worn 88 still blows my mind, because the Nets have had so many players, even in the last 10 years. The fact that nobody's ever been 88. You know, I guess a lot of NBA players don't really go that high up. Like Luka at 77. I can't really think of anybody else that's such a high number, but
Jake
might
Browder.
not be. Wow. It's really August.
Yeah. No, you're not kidding.
How about a mailbag, huh?
Let's do it.
Let's rip these three out, and then we'll hop off here. But for now, we got this from Netlink on X. Netlink, thanks so much for the question. He wants to know, what 10-player rotation do you see them using first? And he also wants to know what 8-player rotation. Let's stick with 10 players right now.
I mean, we kind of did this last week or last episode.
Yeah.
Why don't you go first, Pooch? I mean, I'm hesitant to just pull up the reel from last week and then tack on the next 5 guys.
I know. Yeah, it's tough. I mean, Yegor's one. I got MPJ. I think Cam Thomas will be back, so Cam. Dayron Sharp, Nicholas Claxton, Terrence Mann. I think Noah Clowney finds his way in there. I think that Drake Powell finds his way in there. I said Traore already.
I do not know.
Yeah. I don't know. Zaire Williams being number 9, and then I think Ben Saraf is going to be up and down. We might be talking about that 10th spot a lot, but I don't really have a good answer for this. I mean, I think the first 6, 7 players are relatively evident, but picking 10 is not easy because of what we talked about even earlier, like who's coming up, who's coming down. So
yeah.
Would you agree with that list? Because if you don't want to go through the full,
you'll never guess what I have pulled up on my screen right now. It's certainly not the Nets roster sorted by age. Yeah, what? All right. Michael Porter Jr., Nick Claxton, Terrence Mann, Yegor's the first he'll start. Haywood Highsmith, Clowney. All right. So
Highsmith is in there.
Highsmith
He's
is
in your top 10.
Yeah. Dude, they're gonna play him, but I think they're gonna flip him at the deadline. Drake Powell, Traore. Actually, no. See, this is the thing. This is why we need to wait for the actual offseason to end before we do these questions, because now I got to count all over again. Because Cam Thomas will be back. He's going to sign an offer. He's not going to go anywhere else. No one's going to give him money. He will be back. Dayron Sharp will be back. They just haven't announced it yet. Zaire will be back. They just haven't announced it yet.
Yeah.
I don't think Saraf is going to be there. I think Saraf and Wolf are going to be in Long Island. Just gut feeling. Drake Powell, I got a thread coming out on him soon. I would like to see him get minutes at the pro level, but who knows? I think Dariq Whitehead is going to be first in the pecking order. Even him, who probably still needs development on the same amount as those guys because he hasn't played at the NBA level as much, but he's also, whether you want to qualify it or not, 2 years into his career, he needs to. It's at a point where it's if it will be, it needs to happen now. So he's going to be ahead of those guys in the rotation.
Yeah. I hope Drake Powell is playing with Brooklyn this year. I think that he might be one of the more intriguing rookies that they have right now. And just personally speaking, I want to watch him develop with the pros. I don't.
He's a great athlete. I think he's got great, not just shot blocking talent, but shot defending talent, knowing when should I go with the ball or when should I just go straight up and make sure that, I can get a rebound and I'm not sacrificing position. Good transition player, moves the better passer than people give him credit for, especially in position. I think I would very much like to see him in the rotation.
I think he's even a better scorer than people give him credit for. Dude. If you watch some of his high school clips, he was a go-getter.
And at UNC, RJ Davis, oh my God, what a ball hog. I've watched all their games. I mean, he was a 6th or 5th year from COVID or whatever. You're playing that long, I understand you're going to be a ball hog, but dude, he was his usage rate wasn't even that high, and he would still have games where he would go off for 12, 15 points.
Right. And that speaks a lot to him because that shows that whether he's the first option or if he's the 3rd, 4th, 5th option, he's a system fit. Yes. And in Jordy's system, I really think that it's set up for players to succeed, right? So someone like him, I want to see him in Brooklyn, but I also want to see him aggressive. I want to see the aggressive side of him. the one that's going to put the ball on the floor and take it straight to the hole. But that's a conversation for later. Hopefully Drake Powell is playing predominantly in Brooklyn this year. We got one from Neil Aces. Shout out to Neil Aces. He's always listening to the Brooklyn podcast and submitting good questions. Neil Aces wants to know, with signing a few vets such as Highsmith, Mann, MPJ, could the Nets exceed that projected 20 win total for the season and be a surprise team in the East?
Yeah, I kind of said it earlier where I think there's more of a chance than people realize. Again, in everyone's head on the surface, they stunk last year. They were supposed to stink. Cam Thomas was there, but kind of there. In your head, you probably thought he was there more than he was, but he really wasn't. He was hurt probably like 65 at like lowest percent of the season. And they lost Cam Johnson. So you think they're going to be even worse. But if Cam Thomas is fully healthy, I do think there's more of a chance than people think there is for that reason. But again, I'm just reiterating what I said earlier. The East is better in a way, specifically that hurts the Nets, where that middle lower tier has gotten better. And maybe the upper tier has gotten worse, but not worse enough to the point where they're going to stoop to the level or the level below the Brooklyn Nets. So yeah, I don't think so. Maybe I think I've 1 year has told me to learn not to bet against Jordy. So like, I wouldn't be shocked if they win like around like 25 games, but like, I wouldn't go higher than that.
Yeah. If their projected win total is 20, that's easy money. I think you bet on the over. I think you bet on Jordy, exactly what you just said, what he's going to be able to pull out of these guys in his second year. I mean, he's going to have to be a little bit of a different coach because his number one priority is developing players. Where last year was kind of like a half and half, and they did have a lot of veterans. But Cam Thomas is healthy, and they have him back. You have MPJ, you have Claxton, you have Terrence Mann. You have a lot of these rookies that can buy into the system right away. I think they shock a lot of teams, but when I say shock, I mean like 28 wins, 29 wins. I think that we learned last year also is like maybe it is best to do this ethical tanking where you're developing and hoping that you overachieve. And maybe, just maybe, you're interesting enough to watch for that 10 seed, that play-in spot. You fall out. I know people are counting every single little percentage, but at this stage of the game, Colin, if the Mavericks could get it if they could get the number one pick with a 1% chance, I ask myself, like, is it just best for their development, their culture, their everything that they're doing to try, yes, of course, try and win games, but like really do what people don't want them to do, which is tank, like egregiously tank. So I think they're winning 28-29 this year. I think Jordy's going to be a better coach. You could argue that I don't know if this team is better than last year, but they have a similar makeup. Just now their own rookies.
Yeah.
So to answer Neil's question, I'm saying yes, Colin. I think you are too. And finally, we got one last one from Eli Soto, big Brooklyn podcast fan. Eli, shout out to you. Can we give Michael Porter Jr. back to the Nuggets is what Eli says. Half kidding, half serious. No, they can't give him back. It's too late. Colin, you got any final thoughts?
Final thoughts? No, it's August. I do not have any final thoughts. We have milked the orange out of Brooklyn Nets thoughts out of me right now. But
well, that's always a good thing. Coogee jerseys on the top of my mind. Until then, we thank everybody for the support. Thank you guys for sticking with us. We know we haven't recorded a podcast in a couple of weeks, but we were just trying to, get our feet back on the ground and figure out what was going on, where we'd be streaming. But we'll keep you posted on everything that we'll be doing as we enter the 2025-2026 season. But until then, you give us a follow at The Brooklyn Pod on X, Instagram, TikTok. That is at The Brooklyn Pod. Or email us at thebrooklynpod@gmail.com for any feedback, concerns. If you want to be a sponsor to the show, be our guest. But until next time, thanks everybody and have a great week.